There are close friends. You think they care about you so much. They're always asking about your well-being, unknown to you. They are the source of your challenges. Let's hear the story of Sandra. The morning sun gleamed through the glass-paneled walls of In God We Trust Corporation, casting long shadows over the bustling office floor. At the helm of this dynamic workplace was Miss Patience, a respected manager whose unwavering dedication had earned her the admiration of her team. Known for balancing empathy with professionalism, she inspired those around her to strive for excellence. However, not everything was as harmonious as it seemed. During a critical team meeting, Miss Patience addressed a project delay caused by Sandra, a usually reserved but occasionally defiant employee. "Sandra," Miss Patience said calmly, her tone measured but firm, "we need to discuss how this delay impacts the team's goals." The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Sandra's reaction was anything but ordinary. She glared at Miss Patience, her expression darkening. "You'll regret this," she muttered, her voice barely audible but sharp enough to send a chill through the room. Her eyes flashed with defiance, leaving an unsettling tension in her wake. The team exchanged uneasy glances, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken questions. Who could have predicted that this moment would unravel a series of events that would shake the very foundations of the office? And so, the story began. A tale of hidden forces, unspoken fears, and a battle that would test the limits of faith and perseverance. Miss Patience dismissed the comment, attributing it to workplace frustration. But that night, something unexplainable happened. In a shadowy realm, Sandra stood in the midst of a secret gathering. She revealed to a group of eerie figures, "Miss Patience humiliated me in front of everyone. She must pay." They murmured in agreement, plotting a sinister curse. The night before Miss Patience woke to the pain in her hand, Sandra had slipped into the office after hours. Under the dim glow of her desk lamp, she carefully sprinkled a strange powder onto Miss Patience's workspace, a sinister gift from her occultic meeting earlier that evening. "This will teach her," Sandra whispered to herself with a chilling smile, her actions deliberate and precise. The next morning, Miss Patience arrived at work, completely unaware of what had transpired. By midday, she began feeling a strange discomfort in her hand. Initially brushing it off as a minor irritation, she continued working. However, as the day wore on, the swelling became noticeable, and by the time she was preparing to leave, an ominous throbbing pain had set in. Sandra approached her desk just before the day's end, a sly grin on her face. "How's your hand, Miss Patience?" she asked, her tone laced with malice. Miss Patience, unsettled by the strange question, brushed it off, though a gnawing unease began to settle in her chest. Sandra acted as though she was compassionate, always asking after her hand, not knowing she was giving feedback to the occult, just to monitor Miss Patience's downfall. Over the following days, the swelling worsened. Doctors were baffled, unable to diagnose the cause. Miss Patience's once strong demeanor began to falter as pain consumed her. Forced to take medical leave, she felt isolated and defeated. When her close friend Esther visited, she immediately sensed something amiss. "Patience, this is no ordinary illness," Esther said firmly. "We need to pray." As Esther began to pray, a chilling presence filled the room. Suddenly, Sandra appeared, her eyes glowing an unnatural red. "Stop praying," she demanded in a distorted voice. Miss Patience brought this on herself. Esther stood her ground, declaring the power of God over the darkness. The confrontation escalated, but Sandra vanished with a final, chilling threat. "This isn't over." Miss Patience's condition worsened, and her desperation led her to confide in the CEO, Mr. Dudu. However, her claims of witchcraft and curses were met with disbelief. The CEO, Mr. Dudu, dismissed her concerns, later sending a termination letter citing erratic behavior. Devastated but determined, Miss Patience joined Esther in a rigorous 7-day prayer and fasting session. As they prayed, Sandra and her coven intensified their efforts in the spiritual realm, chanting over a cauldron with malicious intent. Each chant sent waves of pain to Miss Patience, but she and Esther persisted. On the final day of their prayers, a breakthrough occurred. Miss Patience's hand, once swollen and incapacitated, returned to normal. Tears of relief and gratitude flowed as they praised God for his intervention. Back at the corporation, Sandra continued her manipulations under the radar. However, her control began to wane when a new manager, Mrs. Joy, joined the team. Mrs. Joy carried herself with quiet authority and an unshakable faith that unsettled Sandra one night. Mrs. Joy had a vivid dream revealing spiritual marks on her colleagues, chains that bound their destinies. The dream confirmed her suspicions about Sandra's influence. She had noticed that certain officials don't live past 47 years, while some others began to face circumstances that leak away their voluminous wealth. Why must people spend almost all their salary on hospital bills and road clashes and crashes? Why are my workers not enjoying the fruit of their hard-earned labor? This is not ordinary, she concluded. Mrs. Joy intensified her prayers, secretly praying for each team member after hours. Sandra grew increasingly agitated, sensing her grip loosening when confronted. Mrs. Joy calmly warned her, "You still have a choice, Sandra. You can turn away from this path." The conflict escalated when Mrs. Joy sought counsel from her pastor. The pastor agreed to visit the office, and during a Friday prayer session in the conference room, the truth unraveled. Sandra screamed, her voice cracking with raw emotion, and confessed to being a pawn in a dark scheme orchestrated by none other than the CEO, Mr. Dudu. She revealed his chilling backstory. A man once driven by a noble vision for the company, but consumed over the years by greed, past pain, and the pressures of competing in a cutthroat market years earlier. Mr. Dudu had been on the brink of financial ruin when a mysterious figure approached him with a proposition: wealth and success in exchange for loyalty to a darker power. Desperate and embittered by a lifetime of failures, he accepted, never realizing the cost would extend beyond his own soul. The deal required him to channel the company's collective energy into maintaining the pact. To this end, he recruited vulnerable individuals like Sandra, whose troubled past made them susceptible to manipulation, because she was also greedy and always wanting to have an affair with Mr. Dudu. As Sandra recounted these events, the entire staff was left in stunned silence. "He's the reason I've been doing this," she sobbed. "I didn't want to, but he said I had no choice than to obey him before he would satisfy my desires." Her words carried the weight of years of coercion and regret. The prayer session soon transformed into an intense spiritual confrontation. As the pastor and prayer warriors interceded fervently, the atmosphere grew heavy. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a shadowy figure emerged at the doorway. It was Mr. Dudu, his face contorted with rage and fear. "You have no idea what you're meddling with," he bellowed, his voice echoing unnaturally. His form began to shift, revealing a grotesque, otherworldly manifestation of the darkness he had aligned with. A fierce spiritual battle ensued. The prayer warriors, armed with unyielding faith, raised their voices in unison, their words piercing through the oppressive forces that Mr. Dudu commanded. The air in the room grew thick with tension, as waves of dark energy clashed violently against radiant light emanating from their prayers. It was a battle not only of power but also of resolve, testing the endurance of everyone involved. Dudu, his form grotesquely altered by the dark forces he had aligned with, laughed menacingly. "You think your prayers can break the chains I've forged over years? Except you are ready to pray for long years to break it, else you would die here," he sneered, raising his hands to unleash a dark, pulsating wave toward the pastor. The wave struck the pastor with an invisible force, sending him staggering backward. The pastor winced, gripping his chest as memories of his own struggles surged forward. The nights spent questioning his faith, the guilt over a past mistake where he'd failed to protect a loved one, and the relentless financial strain that almost led him to abandon his calling. "You're not strong enough, you're not strong," Dudu's voice echoed, now laced with a sinister mix of mockery and despair. "You can't even handle your own demons." The pastor's breathing quickened as the words cut deep, momentarily weakening his resolve. Around him, the lights flickered erratically, and the oppressive darkness seemed to gain ground. One of the prayer warriors shouted, "Stay strong. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world." Gathering his strength, the pastor dropped to his knees. "Lord, I am weak, but you are my strength," he whispered fervently. As he prayed, a surge of divine energy flowed through him, reinvigorating his spirit. Rising to his feet, he faced Mr. Dudu directly, his voice now steady and filled with authority. "You're right, I am not enough. But the one who lives in me is greater than anything you can muster. By the power in the name of Jesus, you have no hold here." Mr. Dudu's face contorted in fury. He charged at the pastor, his grotesque form leaving trails of shadow in its wake. But as he lunged, a blinding light erupted from the prayer warriors, enveloping the pastor like a shield. Mr. Dudu's attack dissipated on contact, and he recoiled, screaming in agony as the light consumed him. The room shook violently as the forces of darkness began to crumble. The prayer warriors, undeterred, intensified their intercession. The pastor stepped forward, holding his Bible high. "In the name of Jesus, I command every stronghold to fall and every chain to break." With a deafening roar, Mr. Dudu's grotesque form shattered into fragments of shadow, which dissipated into nothingness. The oppressive weight that had gripped the room lifted instantly, replaced by an overwhelming peace. The pastor sank into a chair, exhausted but triumphant. Around him, the prayer warriors embraced one another, tears streaming down their faces as they thanked God for the victory. Sandra, now free from the coven's grip, collapsed to her knees, weeping as the heaviness lifted from her soul. Her voice trembled as she whispered, thank you for not giving up on me." The marks on the employees faded and a new sense of hope filled the office. Though Mr. Dudu vanished without a trace, his influence was shattered and the company began its transformation into a place of light and redemption. It was a victory hard fought and a testament to the power of faith, perseverance, and the ultimate triumph of good over evil. With a deafening roar, Mr. Dudu's form collapsed into shadows, which dissipated into nothingness. His control over Sandra and the office was broken, leaving behind a stunned but liberated staff. Sandra, now free from the coven's grip, wept as the heaviness lifted. The marks on the employees faded, and a new sense of hope filled the office, though Mr. Dudu vanished without a trace. His influence was shattered, and the company began its transformation into a place of light and redemption. The story of Miss Patience, Esther, Mrs. Joy, and Sandra became a testament to the power of faith and perseverance. The corporation, once a battleground for unseen forces, now stood as a beacon of resilience, reminding everyone that no darkness is too great for God's power to overcome. All right, thank you so much for watching this story. I'm sure you've learned some things. Do drop your review at the comment section and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.